But with so much going on in the world and just, it feels like just coming out of COVID and so many things, there's a lot of things we can't control. There's disease and stress and job stuff and family stuff. And I mean, there's just so much that what you can control is what you put into your body. You can control, your habits. And I think it's one of the best habits that is one of the easiest habits.
Dr. Mindy here.
Your body is in a war zone.
Different parts of the brain get activated depending upon how stressed you are.
When you look at it from that inflammatory.
It's interesting. I mean, that has some merit to it for sure.
And you can't control everything.
I'd say.
And what about a woman who is not pregnant, but she's aiming?
Connie, I have to tell you, I have so many questions because I have been following, watching, trying to understand infrared saunas and why they are so beneficial for years. So let me start off by just welcoming you to the Resetter podcast. Super happy you're here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And I want to start off with like the elephant in the sauna room, which is, why do we need to consider a sauna? Like, what is it about saunas that can change the direction of our health?
I think everyone should consider an infrared sauna because they make you feel so much better. And there's lots of reasons why. But with so much going on in the world and just, it feels like just coming out of COVID and so many things, there's a lot of things we can't control. There's disease and stress and job stuff and family stuff. And I mean, there's just so much that what you can control is what you put into your body. You can control, your habits. And I think it's one of the best habits that is one of the easiest habits because you can habit stack. You can do multiple things while you're in there. So everybody should incorporate one into their lifestyle. And you doesn't have to be, I know we can talk about this, but it doesn't have to be like a sauna that's behind me that can be intimidating because it's a large cabin and they think, oh, where am I going to put that? And that looks expensive. And just all those things that go through your head. I mean, we have a small, tiny portable one too. So you don't have to sacrifice feeling great, to have something that's super expensive.
Yeah, and what I think, and this is sort of what I want to highlight for everybody listening, is that we're in this really interesting time in human history where I always say women specifically, but I would even throw men into this. We're at an evolutionary mismatch with physical, emotional, and chemical stress. So if I go back and I look at, like, I was born in 1969, in the 70s and the 80s, health looked like eat right, exercise, end of story. Like, I don't know, maybe take some supplements. But now health has gotten so much more complicated. And when we look at biohacks like the sauna, my feeling is even 5 years ago, we looked at them as optional. And what I'm starting to see now in just interacting with so many people is that they have now actually become this incredible preventative tool or healing tool, much like fasting, much like exercise, much like eating well. And we need to bring this back into our health habits. So talk a little bit about what is the mechanism behind infrared. I know what I feel. I know it from a hormone perspective, but if somebody was going to implement this on a day-to-day into their life, what is the mechanism behind how it heals us?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's important too for people to understand. So I'll answer both, hopefully in the same, to understand the difference between infrared and what people think of when they think of a traditional sauna. And infrared heats your body directly versus heating the air, and then you get hot with the air being hot. Traditional or conventional or being outside, hot rock sauna, steam saunas, all of those we kind of categorize in the traditional sense because you're hot. When you walk in to that environment, the air is hot. And so you are instantly hot. So you're getting hot, from that heat being in the air. When you walk into a sunlightened sauna, you can breathe really easily. It is not
Yeah.
oppressive. You don't get like like
Yep.
you don't doesn't take your breath away. And that is because the wavelength, I'm going to get a little scientific here, but the wavelength is longer and farther. The surface temperature of the heater that it's coming from is cooler. So it allows the wavelength, if you just kind of think of these just like beautiful slow beach waves, it can be absorbed and penetrated into the body, and like captured by the cells and with the water molecules. That's where the magic starts to happen, is getting it inside your body versus having the heat stay in the air.
So there's the effect, the cellular effect of heat, and then there's the sweating. Are those two to be considered to sort of therapeutically, those are going after two different mechanisms in the body, the way I see that. Is that correct?
Yep,
Okay.
you're 100% correct.
So what was interesting and what first attracted me to infrared was the fact that the way my brain understood this was that it simulated a fever. Would you say that is, and fevers heat the body from the inside out to burn out an infection? Is that a proper way to look at an infrared?
Correct. What we say all the time at Sunlight, like back in 20 plus years ago, gosh, more than that now, I can't believe it. We did a study on, does our heater increase the body's core temperature, which is essentially the exact same thing as you just said, right? Does it induce a fever? While still being safe, obviously, like I don't want to, cause anybody to have an alarm of like, I don't want a fever. Well, you know what? You actually do.
Yeah.
When, that's why a lot of pediatricians and, most, medical physicians, when your kid is small, will say, hey, let it run its course. The best thing you can do for your kid is not medicate them. And because a fever is good, it's changing the body. And whenever you change the body, which is what infrared does in so many different ways, which you can talk about, it makes the body stronger. The body's made up of a bunch of muscles. And when when you're sore, my kids come home, like, I make them work out and they come home, oh, I'm so sore. I'm like, great.
Yeah.
That's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to be sore. I don't want to be sore. Well, do you want to be stronger? Yes. Then you have to be sore.
Oh, so well said.
You can't make a change unless you make a change.
Yeah. I think that's a beautiful analogy, because we have been taught by our healthcare system that any symptom that is a symptom other than I feel great is a bad symptom. And yet that is a perfect example that of the body has to break down to build itself up higher. If we look at the fever example, what's really interesting in that one is if we all truly asked ourselves, as bad as a cold feels, when we come on the other side of a cold with a fever, we feel amazing. And I think a lot of times we think it's because I felt so bad, so in contrast, I would feel amazing. But your body just cleaned not only the infection out, but it detoxed you, it burned all the bad out. So you are literally a new person. Mm-hmm. So do we have any science or evidence of like what exactly infrared is burning out of the cell and moving and mobilizing out of the body?
Yeah, there's lots of studies on toxin removal. There's a study called the BUS study, which is blood, urine, and sweat study, that measured a lot of different components, such as the heavy metals, pharmaceuticals, et cetera, lots of toxins. And one of the main conclusions was that toxins that were not found in the blood and urine were found significantly in sweat. Ooh. So we know that, if you're not measuring, if you're not considering, let me say a different way, because people aren't going to measure their sweat. But if you're not considering,
I don't know
sweat,
how you measure it. How would you?
Well, you can, but you just do a sweat analysis. But that's too complicated. And I love your whole message. Like when I was listening to your YouTube and your pod, like everything is about making it simple, which I think because people will follow simple. Yeah. Complicated is for a certain, different type of person. And I think
Yeah,
today we need to make things simple.
agreed.
So when, you're looking at sweat, what's important is that the sweat that's coming out of your body is making you feel better because you're changing the infrared is being absorbed. It's heating up your core temperature, right? So you are literally creating a fever inside your body without disease.
Yep.
So when you're sweating all that stuff out, the reason you feel lighter, people always tell me like, God, I feel so much lighter. I feel like my head's clear. I feel like I have so much more energy. That is another really significant difference between a sunlight and sauna and a traditional steam or rock sauna
Mm,
is how you feel as far as energy afterwards. Like a lot of times in those types in the traditional form, people feel zapped, like a
mm-hmm,
day at the beach. Like at the end of the day, you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted. Yes, you're exhausted because you have all that heat and that's
mm-hmm.
in the air, and it takes a toll on the body. That's like years and years. Gosh, when we first started this business, there was a lot of evidence of you don't want a sauna if you are hypertensive or if you have any heart problems. You don't want to get hot and we can talk about the change and all that later because reality is you want to get this powerful healing wavelength from the sun that's natural without any harmful properties into your body with as much quantity as possible with the right frequency, and that's really what sunlight, that's what we have focused on for the past 20 some years. Is any sauna can be infrared. Like the traditional saunas have a part of infrared in it because it's part of the wavelength, of light from the sun. But what you really want is you want to filter out all of the non-healing rays and you want to focus on the highest quantity possible of the right frequency of infrared and get that into your body, increase your core temperature, how those water molecules move around, transform, and change, push everything out, and feel lighter, clearer, better, more energy, and then you'll also get the detox. I mean, you get all these other benefits as well.
So when we look at detox, there's a wide spectrum of detox. And I've spent a large part of my career figuring out what the best detox is, detoxing thousands of people. And one of the things I find about detox that's so difficult is that it can bring up some really adverse symptoms. And what I love about the sauna, the infrared sauna, is it doesn't typically do that. You go in, you feel yummy, you sweat, you come out, you feel good. So if this could truly be an incredible detox tool, it's so much easier to do than to go through a large supplement program. Do we have any studies showing, how much it detoxes us? You mentioned heavy metals. Do we know if it detoxes glyphosate and plastics? Does it, for the women in the group, does it detox endocrine disruptors? Like if we could use this as a tool on an everyday or a weekly basis to detox these things, especially for women, this would be a game changer without the suffering.
Yeah, I totally agree. So that same study, the BUS study, yes, they measured plastics, all of the heavy metals, oxycodone. I mean,
Wow.
all these. Right. What was so powerful, and we were starting to talk about this, and we got distracted, is that the sweat is so much more. Detoxing through sweat is so much more powerful than
Mm,
detoxing from blood and urine because you're going to get out so much more. So imagine this. They found in the study that mercury was not removed from the body in blood or urine, but 100% was removed through sweat.
wow.
So again, like I was saying, people aren't going to like measure that, but if you're not looking at that as a resource, as a way to rid your body of things that you don't want in your body, you're
Right.
you're missing a very valuable and efficient hack for sure. So, as far as some of the female aspects, we know that it definitely helps, with your cortisol and your hormones. Has there been a specific study on detox with I haven't necessarily seen something that focused, especially with an infrared sauna, but I will tell you anecdotally, and from, I go to a integrative concierge physician, and she's just amazing. She has a sunlight and sauna. She does it every day. She totally believes in it, and she would say, that it definitely helps with your thyroid, and with just removing all of the toxins in your body, so that your body can then accept and change the good things, because it's all this beautiful orchestra and symphony when everything's
Yeah.
working right,
Right.
and
Yeah.
if something's off balance, then it sounds like a really bad violin, or like
Yeah.
that it's not singing in concert, and in order to sing in concert together, you have to have the thyroid and all of the organs working together. And that's one of the things that one of the benefits that infrared does on your body, by moving everything.
Yeah, and when we look at things like thyroid, we look at, the ovaries, we look at the brain. We are living in the most toxic time in human history. So if you don't have a detox strategy in place right now, you are setting yourself up for chronic disease. It's just the way the environment we live in. So one of the things I don't was somebody on your team years ago told me this hack, and I love it, which is you get in the sauna, and then knowing you're detoxing, and then when you get out, you can take some binders to bind to those toxins, and you can also your skin is so open, what you put on your skin actually will be absorbed and more easily. So we started doing this in my clinic, where we would have women put probiotic lotion that we knew was really good on their abdomen after they got out of the sauna. Do you have any, I don't think there's maybe been any science on that, but is there a way to use the sauna, post sauna, to amplify a healing state like I just mentioned?
The only, and it wasn't really it was a study from Sunlight and Associate, then it's a little bit of a different angle, but it connects to the near infrared in our impulse sauna. And she did a study. She had to have immediate gallbladder surgery, and she used our near infrared LEDs to heal the wounds of her surgery. And they actually, they did a control, like she mocked it up and did A, B, C, D, like the different, incision points, and showed, and they didn't use ointment or anything. It was literally just a near infrared light, and completely healed the wounds with the near infrared. And then she had one where she did not put the LEDs. So she removed the panel and was able to just put it on.
Interesting.
So a different answer, but that there's a lot of science, and there's a lot, a very extensive, because when we came out with Impulse, 2009, 10, so what is that, 13 years ago, we relied on all of the research that had already been done on the value of near infrared photo biomodulation and on the skin, and how does this really help the skin, and it's so powerful, each wavelength. And we could talk forever about the power of the infrared spectrum as a whole, and then you separate it out and you have far infrared, mid infrared, near infrared, and they all have their own like magical powers on the body, and depending on what you're looking for. If you're just looking for detox, far is good enough. Far will get you the increase in core temperature. It'll get you the increase, the fever. It'll get you the vibration of your water molecules, the changing of your cells, the mitochondria impact. All of that is good enough. But then if you want to add on benefits, the other two wavelengths have great capabilities as well.
And so this is interesting. I talk to me a little bit. So your sauna has all the wavelength, and I know there's a control, and we can control all of it, but talk a little bit before I really want to also talk about parasympathetic nervous system, because that a lot of our listeners are rushing women that are trying to figure out how to slow down. But talk about those different wavelengths. Like, what is it? Because it's not just sitting in a box and like sweating. there is a whole therapeutic value that we can use. So talk just so I understand
Yeah.
the difference.
So there's 3 wavelengths, far, mid, and near, and it's really based on the surface temperature of the heater, so that you know the quantity and quality of the wavelength. And all of this, the infrared spectrum, which is again comes from the sun, all natural healing. Um, the far infrared is the longest wavelength. It's also the coolest wavelength of the 3. So that's the wavelength that goes the deepest, as far as absorption into the body, and that's the one that works with your water molecules, gives you the increase in core temperature. The second is mid. That's hotter. So when you increase heat, you decrease the absorption of the wavelength. So the mid is shorter and choppier, and you're going to feel hotter when you have the mid, wavelength. It's great for inflammation in the joint and tissues. There's been studies done on flexibility, inflammation, muscle recovery. We're now working with so many different athletic facilities, professional athletes, because of the speed to get them back, into their profession as quickly as possible. And then near, which is, I mean, that's just show on its own. 'Cause it's complicated, and my passion is working hard to make it as simple as possible to have people understand. So it's um there's invisible light that comes from it, and there's visible light. And there is no heat because it's that far is the coolest, then mid, then near. Near, if you were really to deliver, well, you can't. But if you wanted, just theoretically, to deliver a high quantity of near infrared to the body, you would get burned because the temperature
Mm,
would have to be so incredibly hot. There's no way you could be
mm,
anywhere near it. And the value of near is being close to it. So far, you don't have to be right next to it, and
mm,
neither with mid, but near you, we want to be as close as possible. So we've converted the near infrared wavelength to LEDs, and
mm.
so there is no heat. And but they're super, super powerful, and they are amazing at skin rejuvenation, wound healing, um, inflammation on the surface. I used
Beautiful.
my near infrared when I was going through running training and when I was helping my husband. He wanted to do an Ironman, so I did the running portion with him. Oof, which is a
Yeah.
lot. But that sauna was my tool. I mean, after a long run, I would run downstairs to my basement. Well, actually, I wouldn't run downstairs. I would painfully walk very so hard downstairs. But I could run upstairs after a 30, 40-minute, sauna session, and I would place my feet and my knees, the parts that were hurting, my ankle, right up, right up next to the LEDs. And that way you can
Mm,
feel almost immediately the connection between the wavelength and, the muscles and the area
mm.
that's inflamed. And you can just feel it starting to like go from the angry state to, okay, I don't need to be
Yeah.
this mad.
So your sauna does all 3 wavelengths?
It does
Is
all
that correct?
3, and then we also, well, that's the impulse. So we have 4 different series. We have a portable unit, that has far infrared. We have a wooden cabin that has far infrared. Those 2 are like the same type, but one's portable and a lie down, and one's a wooden cabin. And then we have Amplify that has a blend, of all 3 in front of you that's hotter. Some people want that
Mm,
boost of heat,
yeah.
far and behind you. And then we have Impulse, which has all 3. And now we just introduced, so this is cutting edge, on your show, we just introduced a 4th wavelength in there, which is the red light,
Mm,
LEDs. And so you have
amazing.
red, which it crosses over. So there's invisible near infrared. And then once you cross over to kind of 660 nanometers and keep going to the left, you start to get into the different colors of light therapy.
Mm,
And red is right next to invisible. There's great benefits of that. So we have 4 different wavelengths, and we call it the smart sauna because we also have the tablet, and we have programs, and you're able to use it via an app. And all
which is
sorts of.
amazing. Yeah. I mean, you guys have really tricked it out into this really healing modality, which is
Trying to make it
really
easy,
cool.
right? Because if it's
Yeah,
easy, then people will do it over and over again.
that's
So you
really
just
true.
press a button, go in there and press the cardio button, press the anti-aging button, press the detox button, whatever,
Yeah.
weight loss, and
Yeah.
then you don't have to think anymore. You just sit back and relax.
Talk a little bit about its benefits on the parasympathetic nervous system, because one of the biggest challenges I see specifically for women over 40 is that as our ovaries are going into retirement, our sex hormones are going away, the burden of making sex hormones lands on the adrenal glands. And I don't know there's a handful maybe out there of 45, 43-year-old women that are stress-free, but for the most part, women in their 40s are so stressed out. And so this is a big piece that I see as causing so many perimenopausal and menopausal symptoms. And what I noticed in my clinic when we were using your sauna, and what I've noticed with a few of my virtual clients, is that there's this relaxation that sticks with you after you get out of the sauna. Is that activation of the parasympathetic?
Well, I think they can say a lot of different things. So because you're able, like infrared, we know for sure that it helps with relaxation, with balancing your body's level of cortisol. So that's been proven forever. I mean, that was one of the first scientific um, elements that we found for years ago. Which is a stress hormone, right? And so
Yeah.
so there's the cortisol impact. There's also the whole heat benefit on your body to just instantly relax, your body, and just allows your shoulders and your just entire body to like go
Yeah.
from the just tense, I'm gonna go slay this dragon, and I'm one of those women that
Yep.
I like will do it all. And I go in there, and I mean really it's almost instantly, where you can just feel, everything moving around the flow, and that's the other thing that's been proven. I mean, that was way back when we started. There was evidence over in Asia of increased blood flow, increased oxygenation. I mean, significant benefits on the heart because of the increased blood flow, the thinning of, all of the endothelial lining so that everything flows better. So more oxygen's getting to your cells, more oxygen's getting to your brain. That helps, eliminate the mind chatter and the mind fog.
Yeah.
And so when everything starts to flow, it's very similar. This is how I always, somebody who's never been in one, it's kind of like how you feel if you go for a vigorous walk, or if you're a runner and go for a run, and when you're done, you feel like lighter and refreshed and euphoric.
Yeah,
Right, exactly.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's how you feel. It's a passive
Yeah.
cardiovascular benefit. You're getting that increased heart rate, you're getting that blood flow while you're in there, you're getting that increased oxygenation, you're helping with your cortisol, you're, helping with your water molecules, which is so important. It's such a massive part of your body, to release toxins that are trapped, get them out. Because again, that's the burden, that's heavy. And it's really hard. It's hard to get that stuff out of your body. People
Mobilized.
do
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if you can do it on a daily basis and keep things moving, it's
Yeah.
like Dr. Hyman always says, just move. I don't care where
Yeah.
you move to. I don't care how you move. I don't care if you do it. But if you move your body,
Yeah.
it's so incredibly important. And part of being inside the sauna is moving your body without moving your body.
Yeah.
Right.
And I would also add to Mark Hyman's just move, we need to just relax. And when I look at every problem that's happening again to women as they go through menopause, over menopausal age, humans in general, stress is at the core. But as a rushing woman, I can tell you, I get to the end of the day and it's like now there's no switch in my body that can just calm me down. And so it ends up being like a glass of wine.
Mhm.
Or now that I have a sauna, many times it's a sauna. Get in the sauna and there's this parasympathetic switch that takes over that now lets me move into a more relaxed state. And I really have come back in all my knowledge of hormones to you cannot heal a hormonally imbalanced body if it's stressed out. You have to master relaxation first. But as you know, you tell any overachieving woman that, and she's like, great, better said than done. So I think that you guys are really onto something with this being a tool that switches us into a relaxed state that helps us heal. And one of the measurements of that is HRV, how quickly your body's able to relax. Do we know any studies on infrared that can show it changes that HRV?
Yeah, there are a bunch. I don't have any off the top of my head, but I know, I mean, I've seen a lot of cardiologists that have looked at, and I know like Dr. Khan, I'm just thinking now of all the different people who've talked about the value of, changing your heart rate and increasing your heart rate and doing it in a non-invasive, active way too, right? I mean, you're getting this soothing, Wayon therapy stands for soothing, warmth. And that's been proven for years over in Asia to help extend not only the quantity to have you live longer, but the quality of your life with only 15 minutes a day with infrared heat. And that's it. So that's the other thing is it doesn't take, this is not something you have to commit. That's been another change while we're on that topic. That's been another change I've made in my life post-COVID. During COVID, obviously easy for, you can stay in there. I mean, because you're not going anywhere.
Right.
But I feel like, I don't know how you feel, but I strongly feel as though this last year, two-ish, it seems like, it's so much busier and so much crazier than it was pre-COVID. And
Yes.
so like it's just crazy.
Yeah.
And so therefore your mind can play tricks on you and can tell, your body, you don't have time. You don't have time to sauna. That sounds like a luxury. And you need to train your mind. I like that's not an option. I absolutely have time and I have to. It is not like a want to. This is something that I have to do. And so one of the things I've started to do to finish that sentence is just tell when my brain does it, because I'm that mom, I've got 2 kids, I've got a husband, I've got a business, I've got friends, I've got a community, all of that stuff. A mom, like, all that stuff. Just like I'm sure all of your listeners. And when my brain says, "Oh my gosh, what about this and this and this you have to do?" I'm like, "You know what? I'm just going to go in there and I'm going to get started and I'll do 5 minutes, 10 minutes." And that's okay. I mean, what happens is I end up staying in there longer because once I'm in there, I start to figure out how I can manage the rest of my day because I'm relaxed. Like my brain starts to become incredibly creative. I mean, I transform my brain into like, oh my gosh, why was I overthinking this? This is so easy. I just move this to here and this to here, and I always leave paper in there too. That's been another new thing because I come up with all these great ideas and I think about, oh, I should do that. And so I write it all down so that I remember, but my point is don't not do it because you don't have 30 minutes or you don't have 40 minutes or you think, oh, I can't, if I do it, then I have to shower and I have to do all this kind of stuff. You can wipe down. It is better to do 10 minutes of healing infrared. You will thank yourself. Like you will be so happy than not do it because what happens is it's all a momentum and a cycle, right? So like, okay, you don't do it this day. Well, now tomorrow you didn't do it. So you don't receive the benefits of it. So you don't know what you're missing.
Do it every day.
Right.
Yeah, I just started this with meditation. I had fallen off my meditation path and I told a friend, I'm like, okay, hold me accountable. I got to do it every day for 40 days because I've been telling myself, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it the next day. So you're right. There is something really rhythmic about doing it every day, and it just becomes part of your health habit.
Right.
I never thought the creativity part. So I'm like, I'm going to write my book in there.
Yes.
I never even thought of that. You just gave that to me. And so you
will love that experience. I can't wait for you to do that. Like, you will see for sure. And there's science behind the especially the near infrared light, but all of the different ones and the way they work with your brain and your body, just the stimulation of, again, going back to the flow, and then the near infrared on the brain itself, helps to kind of unlock a lot of things that are stuck.
Yep.
And so you get that just beautiful release in your brain. And it always happens. I mean, I get more relaxed, but it's just fascinating. I also get more creative, which gives me more energy, but it's not this stress energy.
Yep.
It's a just powerful energy where I'm like, it's a calm energy, if that makes any sense, where I'm like, okay, I totally have this. Like this is just another day.
Like, I had never really thought through it through this lens, which is when we're in stress, we're locked in our amygdala, which is our fight or flight brain. And I can tell you, because I'm currently writing my next book, and when I get locked there, I can't write. Because when you're locked in that fear part of the brain, all the brain wants to do is look for problems that it needs to fix. But for a lot of us, we get locked in the amygdala for a very, very long time. And so we need tools to pull us out of that. So if you're noticing more creativity, what my thought is, and I don't know if they've ever done a study on this, but my thought is what's happening is it's pulling you into your prefrontal cortex, because they communicate with each other. They work, when the amygdala is active, the prefrontal cortex is quiet. When the prefrontal cortex is active, the amygdala is quiet. So I'm wondering if, I now you got me wanting to go look at the science, if there's some activation in the prefrontal cortex, and it could be the heat, because heat relaxes us. That I feel like there's a brain switch. And when I get in one of those big barrel saunas, which are fun as well, I just count the hours or minutes till I can get out. My heart is pounding so bad. I'm sweating for sure, but that is to me a totally different experience. It's actually one that's more stressful. And what infrared does is actually create a more calm state. And that's why I think you're getting the creativity you've noticed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great way to sum it up. And I've heard that from many physicians they've shared that with me. They'll say that, they'll write, or they'll journal, or, because they find that their brain unleashes a lot of things that they were wanting to do, because you're relaxed, and, it just, when you're stressed, you can't think, right? It's just like,
no. You don't see when you're stressed, and and the brain is made this way because when you're stressed, there's one focus, and that's survival. Mm-hmm. So all your brain's going to do is figure out how to keep you alive. It's not going to figure out how to help you write your book, which is one of the things I've noticed. So there's some real primitive logic when we actually sit down and look at what stress does to us. And we know it shuts down our digestion. We know it brings all the circulation back to the heart and lungs. I mean, there's so much chronic damage over time. So it makes incredible sense that just 10 minutes in a day would allow your brain to switch out or fight or flight. I just never thought of using it in that tool. So that was brilliant. So I really appreciate
you
that.
find like that 10 minutes will find you the time in your day later so that you can stay in that moment longer.
Yes.
That's what happens. It's so cool. It really is.
It's kind of like, have you ever been looking, like you're getting ready to go out and you're looking for an earring in your jewelry box and you can't find it and you're stressed. You're like, okay, I got to find it. And you can't find it because you're so stressed trying to move forward that your brain is actually constricted. That's how life is that we can't find answers when our brain is locked in this amygdala. and then you come home and you're like, wait, the earring's right there.
Right
The
here.
thing it was right here. How did I miss that? You missed it because the brain was jammed up. But what I'm hearing is really, really exciting, and something I never really thought of it before we got to this conversation, is that it is this tool for brain expansion because it relaxes you enough to pull you out of that fight or flight. Which leads me to the next question, and what you talked about when we first started is depression. And I can tell you recently I've been doing a lot of research on estradiol. And estradiol actually activates a serotonin receptor site in the brain that makes us happy. And for women who are going through menopause, as we go through menopause, estradiol goes away. It's no longer necessary. So we're left with a serotonin receptor site that isn't activated. So we have to makes us depressed. In fact, 42% of women that go through menopause hit depression, are clinically depressed. So one of my new cries to women is we need as many tools to help with depression as possible. So talk a little bit about the new studies that you're seeing on depression, because I just see this sauna working from so many angles for menopausal women. And I think, when we're depressed, we turn on ourselves. We don't think it's, we don't think that, there's anything we can do about it. We just live in it. And that's really a hard place to be when you're year after year after year.
So there is two studies that I'll reference. So one is Dr. Raison's from Wisconsin, his original study that every time I say it, it just is mind blowing because they studied depressed patients and put them in a infrared heated device that is in Germany, but I mean, it was this $50,000, a very, very expensive device. And their goal was to elevate their core temperature. So it kind of comes back to everything we talked about at the very beginning. And the conclusion, without taking too much time, was that in one session, that's the thing that just blows my mind. In one session, they found the depression symptoms were relieved for up to 6 weeks. One session. And the mechanism, was the elevation in core temperature, as well as the other thing that some other physicians studied in a different study is that the skin, and this is what's the value of infrared versus hot air, the skin really appreciates the heat. The heat makes the skin communicate with the brain that it's happy. Ooh. So like there's this happy connection. It's like, oh, and it's just this really interesting brain skin heated, where it's not too hot, which is the value of infrared, right? Because you're not you're not uncomfortable. You should be enjoying the session. So that was Dr. Raison's study. There's been other studies very similar that say the same results. But what's really exciting, well, that's exciting, but what's extra exciting is Dr. Ashley Mason is now doing a study in California that mimics what Dr. Raison did, but she's doing it in a way to make it accessible for people in their home. And so she's using a portable lie-down model that looks just like the Solo, that's infrared. And the goal is, she's already done the first part, which is, will it heat up the core temperature? Will it, core temperature? One of the values is doing it slowly with depression. So that's another benefit of, just, hey, get in. Don't worry about if you have time or not. Just get in. Even if it's not hot, you don't need it to be hot. It's about baseline with increase, right? So, the longer you're in there, the better, because it's going to elevate, but you don't have to wait until it's hot because the infrared will get into your body. It's actually better for your body when it's cooler because it'll be absorbed faster because it's easier to get in versus the hotter it gets, then it gets, shorter, et cetera. So it's really exciting because soon she's going to be able, to give, so far all the results and everything has been like really promising, but the issue with Dr. Raison's is, is in Germany, the accessibility, I mean, how do people do that at home? So to be able to have a tool, which we have, the Solo, which we know we measured the core temperature years ago. We know we can increase the core temperature, which is the point in question, and that leads to happier people longer. And you don't need a lot of sessions in those studies, but my thought is, if it makes you happier, why not do it all the time?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
you know,
and then again, I'd always look this through a menopausal woman's lens, and we need as many tools for happiness
right.
that we can find. So if 10 minutes in the sauna, it makes us happier. What a gift. It detoxes you. It balances your parasympathetic. It's a lot. I mean, as much as I love a glass of wine, it's a lot more healthy than a glass of wine in the sense, but it has that, and it also has that cumulative effect where once you start to feel a little bit better, and then the next day you feel a little bit better, and then, weeks go by, months go by, and you're like, wait a second, I'm not even in the sauna now. Now I'm happy. And I think that's what we need, is a building of happiness, and whereas the glass of wine feels good in the moment, the next day not so good. So I'd be actually really interested in, if you have those studies, seeing them.
Yeah.
We'll link them here.
There's a ton of there's a lot, and they're all great, and it's, to me, if you know about a tool that can help people kind of, change that switch in the brain, that like Dr. Ray Son says, he's like, I think it's a thermoregulation. There's lots of theories. One's a thermoregulation, one is the skin aspect, connection to the brain. I mean, I think there may be more than one thing that's going on, right?
Yeah.
But the thermoregulation switch is that it has been shown people with depression aren't able to naturally cool themselves down at night.
Oh.
And so if they can't, if their body stays warm and they're not able to, then you don't have that change, which your body needs that change in order to have a good night's sleep. And then as you're waking up, then things start to change, and the hormones start to change, and your body knows, okay, now I wake up, and you should be, wake up happy, etc.
Right.
So infrared, the heat, that experience, that study, Dr. Son would say, helped change the thermoregulation in the body. So now when they measured them, they were able to, by unlocking that switch of, hey, I'm stuck, I can't cool down. Well, now I'm increasing your core temperature, which is now making the body cool down. When it's
like a
out.
hormetic stress. It's like a hormetic stressor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like fasting.
So now it can do it on its own.
Yeah.
Right. Like I don't need that every single day, which is why that the results happen, extended for 6 weeks. So, I mean, what a gift to be able to have a good night's sleep.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. For every woman over 40 is like, yeah, sign me up for that. So I absolutely. And that's the interesting thing about fasting, is that your body becomes so reparative with a little bit of stress like that, that your results in the fasting window get better and better and better. It's not like you're just healing when you're fasting. What we've seen over time is that you're healing more and more and more with the shorter and shorter fasts, which that's what the comment you just made. I was thinking, yeah, it's kind of the same concept where you flipped a switch where the body has now put itself into a healing state, a more expansive state. And you're going to keep that state as long as you don't bombard it with more stressors. Would that be a way of looking at that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, I want to say that I've watched the whole biohacking movement, and I feel like tools like infrared went from optional to everybody's getting one. And then I also see this dilemma that a lot of people have, which is, do I get the one that I put in my backyard and has rocks and I just sweat like crazy, or do I get an infrared? And after experiencing both, they are totally different tools. That's the way I look at it, and especially for a menopausal woman, because I personally, and I don't want to upset anybody, but I will say that I think the extreme heat is too hard for the menopausal body. I can just tell my heart rate is so high. I when I go into those other saunas. So this is another door in to healing using heat in a different way. So yeah, it's fascinating to me. So with that, I always like to end my podcast on two personal questions. I always have a theme for the year. This year it's been self-love. So I would say your sauna is a daily practice of self-love. But outside of that, do you have a daily practice of self-love? And my second question is, if you could describe one of your superpowers that you bring to the world, what would it be?
Okay. Well, so two come to mind. So one would be, I am intuitive, very intuitive, and when I lean into my intuition, I am never led astray. And it's just so cool.
Awesome. That is a
So, but
superpower.
I have to consciously, of course, because I do have a brain, and the brain sometimes wants to think logically and blah blah blah. So, and then the other is this, and I think a lot of this has to do with sauning and just being intentional about what I put in my body and how I treat my body, and but is just this positive intention, this positivity towards balancing and integrating all of the beautiful choices we have made in our life, and I hear so much stress, from women specifically. Men stress too. I have a husband. In fact, he's stressing a lot right now. Um, just finding a way to remind, myself that for the most part, everything that I'm doing is a choice. And so it's within my own power and how I look at each lens, look at my choices for my two kids and parenting them, and the choices I'm making with work with my children, and the choices I'm making with their choices, and my husband and the company and my friends, and saying no when you want to say yes to, invitations, on
Saying
community
no is
stuff.
hard.
It's really hard.
Super hard, especially if there's something you want to do.
Right. Super, super hard.
That's a
But I
good
think if you
superpower.
stay kind of focused on this beautiful circle that I have a bullseye, and I just kind of just always stay in this kind of nuclear state of, if my end game is making sure that, my kids are making good choices, that my husband is happy, as well as gets the partnership from me in our business. And, if I do all of that, then it just came to becoming that it helps make the decisions, right? If you know what your values are and you're clear about them, then it is easier to say no. It doesn't ever feel good. It never does. But like I tell my kids all the time, like, a lot of times it doesn't feel good to do the right thing at the time.
Yeah.
It will always feel good later,
Yeah.
you
Well
know,
said.
but
Yeah.
at the time it's painful, but suck it up.
Yeah. Right. I love that.
So,
I love that.
and then
And
you had another.
Yeah. What's your self-love practice? Do you have a meditation practice? Anything you do every day to give back to yourself?
Okay. So that's probably, I do a lot of stuff, but it's probably how in the morning before I get out of bed, I like lie down and I like make myself tall and stretch before I get out of bed. And I go through my intentions of, um, of that day. And just, it's the time where I just, say to myself, here's how I vision this going, and this is what I would like to have. And and I ask the universe for if there's some gaps in what I'm kind of setting out for and what I don't feel that maybe I have to be able to to get there. But then I always before I put my feet on the ground, I always kind of just tell myself, you know what, you're enough, you got it, like you'll
Love
figure
it.
it out. And And if I can't, if I'm really struggling, then a lot of times I will run downstairs and I will get in the sauna or I'll go for a walk outside. I'm a huge believer in fresh air
Oh
and
yeah.
like getting your eye. I mean, I'm in the light business, so it's like getting your eyes on the sun and, just connecting with the elements outside versus being inside.
Yeah.
And just
Yeah.
feeling the world. And it's like, okay, deep breathing, it's hard. I mean,
It's work. I mean, taking amazing care of your brain is work.
it's
For sure.
work.
Yeah. And I think we
It's
just walk around with it in our head and we're like, oh, it's just this is the way it is. But the more I've learned, the more I'm like, it's work. It's totally work. So
Yeah, yeah,
so
but it's worth it. If you just take one day at a time and you practice self-love and you get into yourself and you take care of yourself first, there is an end. Like you do come out on the other side,
I do.
in a beautiful place. But you have to embrace, you can't just go crazy. And you do have to find tools, find
Mm,
resources, find friends, find some support for yourself to embrace the beautiful person that you are and the beautiful
mm,
choices that you make. And if you're not making beautiful choices, then change, then make different ones, but
yeah.
find things that do make you happy, because then it builds the momentum of those around you,
Yeah.
right?
So
And
well said.
so
I absolutely agree that when one person heals themselves, they just open up the door for everybody else to follow. So it takes that courageous leap to be maybe the first one in your friend group or the first one in your environment, which to your point means saying no and protecting yourself first. So
yeah.
Connie, this was amazing. How do people find
Aw.
you? How do they find all your products and dive
Yeah.
into your saunas?
They go to sunlighten.com. So sunlighten.com. And we, will always take care of people like yourself, your customers. So we will
Thank you.
also offer, discounts. So we, make sure the most important thing if people are listening is to make sure you mention,
Mm,
you and where they heard about it, because that is, we believe in win-win relationships, and we want to take care of, our friends and our partners, and we want to take care of those people who take care of them. And so
mm.
just make sure everybody, shares, they listen to the Resetter podcast or Dr. Mindy or however you have them, reference you. And you can call too. We have a toll-free number, 877-292-0020. I always offer my email, czach@sunlighten.com. If somebody,
Hmm.
you mentioned at the very beginning, and it just brought me back to 20 years ago when I started, and people were so confused about, like, I don't understand this whole infrared thing. And
Mm-hmm.
really, like, it sounds too
Yep.
good to be true. And um, so I always offer myself, if they're just really confused, they can send me an email and I will help as much as I can,
Thank you.
myth bust and clear up any confusion, in
Thank
this
you.
simple way as possible. So
Yeah.
this has just
Well,
been so much fun. I have really,
thank
really
you.
enjoyed every minute. And, I'm like sad that, it's over. I've been looking so forward to it, but like,
Oh,
I'm
thank
really
you,
excited.
Connie.
I'm excited to, get to know your audience, and
Mm,
however that our people at Sunlight can help, we're here.
thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you all. And as you know, I'm on a mission to get women healthy and change the paradigm of health for women. And this is a part of it. This is key. So thank you for making these products, getting these products out to the world, and just together we're more. I mean, that's the feminine energy, in my opinion, is women coming together, collaborating to heal each other and heal ourselves. So thank you for being on that
100%.
journey and
Yeah.
being your small little piece, like my small little piece. When we put a bunch of small pieces together, everybody wins. So thank you, Connie.